It's not exactly the worst thing. In fact, one might even say to me, Justin, this isn't worthy of you talking about it on the podcast. It should just be something that shamefully goes in the back of your memory, never to be remembered again. Because folks, truth be told, I didn't lock my keys in that car. Those doors were open, and the keys were in. Because, ladies and gentlemen, they were in the ignition. This is the remix edition about the song about me missing all the keys in that rental, and I had everyone wishing that they had just stole my car. It was fucking sitting far. I'm talking like a pirate now. I fucking left my car running on the streets of goddamn Portland. This was among the dumbest things I have ever done in my entire life. It was, I felt so fucking stupid. Now mind you, I am also doing this in front of the co-owner of my company. Let that sink in.
This episode of the Justin Robert Young podcast is brought to you by everybody that goes on over to patreon.com/JuRY to support us. Thank you very much. Wink. Holy shit. First and foremost, we're off to a fucking stellar start today, folks. We are out of the gate with all of the coordination of a motherfucker made of 8 knees and 2 elbows. This is the Justin Robert Young podcast, and dare I say it, that if you are watching this on YouTube, if you are listening to this on the podcast, if you are watching us live on diamondclub.tv, that this right now might be the most consequential episode of this podcast that I have ever done. Because, oh God, and it is so, I'm so nervous about this. I'm very, very nervous because it involves disappointing people and it involves saying goodbye. And I don't, we'll talk about it at the end. I'm going to be a massive fucking cock tease on this, by the way, and I'm going to save the announcement until the very, 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 very end. So we're going to do an actual episode of the show, but just listen to the end or skip to the end. I'm sure somebody on YouTube is putting the, like, skip Justin's cock tease hyperlink on YouTube right now, but we for those of you watching live, unfortunately you, the most loyal people for which watch and listen to me, you're the ones who are going to get cock teased, and I apologize for that. It's just that I can't do the thing first and then do a show. We learned with the 9/11 transition that it's damn near impossible to go and do something very, very, very heavy and then go do some other stuff. So I'm going to try and learn from my mistake when I segue very silky smooth like into what's the deal with Reddit? Can we have a conversation about Reddit? Huh? Facebook too. Facebook and Reddit. Here's the problem. You got all these theories, these movie theories. Have you read these? I don't know why. I'm so nervous. I'm sounding like Jay Leto. I'm turning what is otherwise a fairly prototypical Geek Talk Radio kind of bit, for which I have tried to perfect on this show. It's the bread and butter of this program. And I'm so keyed up right now that I can't help but just make it sound like hacky bullshit. So here's the thing. I'm on Facebook periodically and I see these things, and sometimes they're usually just ripped off from Reddit posts. Sometimes they are big blocks of text. Usually they're what they call in the industry macros. So text on top of pictures. But these things that are like explained, the Joker is actually the hero of the Dark Knight movie. And it goes in excruciating details about how the how the Joker is really working against Batman, working against the mob the entire time, and is manipulating Batman so he might further achieve his aims. And again, beyond the idea that this is cross purposes to the story that was being told by the original storyteller, it's also just like, I don't know, it's just masturbation. That one I could almost understand, though, because the Joker in The Dark Knight is a morally ambiguous character. He is the definition of an anarchist. The one that drives me up a wall, and I do believe that it is designed to drive me up a wall. It is cut in a lab, weaponized to look me dead in the eye and say, Justin, I am going to drive you up the fucking wall right now, is this. Theory: Jar Jar Binks was a trained Force user, knowing Sith collaborator, and will play a central role in The Force Awakens. This written by Lump Waru and posted to r/Star Wars is a very thorough and long. This motherfucker is is just massive. Goes into tremendous detail on why Jar Jar Binks not only is a skilled warrior, he knows how to use the Force. He was either operating in concert with Palpatine, the Emperor, or he was the superior. He was the head of the Sith organization. Now, the reason why this exists is because the prequels aren't good movies, right? Because you leave them out so far, beyond the ability for people to make any kind of coherent sense, that you can fill in whatever you want. You can say that Jar Jar Binks is the Sith Lord. And now he's like, the thing on top, which apparently I haven't read this whole thing, but by the end of it, his TLDR is Jar Jar Binks is Supreme Leader Snoke, who we have not yet seen in the flesh in the teaser trailers, but we know that he's being played by Andy Serkis, a motion capture artist, is just, it's there for clickbait. He's gotten gold 17 times. This is a story that has not only exploded beyond Reddit, it has gone viral on Facebook. It is 7,644 votes up on the initial post. But I don't know. Maybe I love these. Maybe I love these because I do love talking about them, and I am, I don't know. Now I've actually talked myself into it. I've talked myself into the fact that this is the most rad thing on the planet. I came in just all full of piss and vinegar about how, like, can we be done with this shit? The movies are the movies. Shitty movies are shitty movies. I don't need 40,000 words on the burglars in Baby's Day Out are actually the heroes of the film, and the baby is actually the worst person on the planet. I don't need the 40,000. Well, actually, according to my essay, Hitler was the hero of World War II. I mean, I guess there's a lot of that. That's like the entirety of Stormfront.net. So maybe that is popular on the internet. Welcome to the JuRY program.
Treat me like a pirate and give me that booty. Treat me like a pirate and give me that booty. Treat me like a pirate and treat me like a pirate and treat me like a pirate and give me that booty. Ha ha. Yo ahoy, matey, I see a cutie. Freaky little thing with her treasure booty. Yeah, fine dime, honey, so I think she kinda snooty. I don't really care, I just wanna see her nudie. Captain Floors hit it, pillage and plunder. I'm in for that booty, then I'm going.
All right, I got another inside the reporting industry question, because I'm reading this thing here today about Jimmy Fallon. So if you're unaware, if you're not following Jimmy Fallon either online or through the Tonight Show, he's had a hell of a summer, this poor guy. He's hurt his hand, and then he cut his hand again, and then he chipped his tooth. This has come alongside the fact that the New York gossip press have run 1.5 million articles about how he parties a lot. So here's my central thought. What is our line of what is okay to report and what is not okay to report? Because I think that we are at a very, very different point than when the rules for this were initially written. So let's say with celebrity journalism, the only thing that you are really wondering about is what will drive people's interest to your piece and what will piss off celebrities, which are very often your key sources for things, whether or not they want to be out there in public or not. So it's fairly obvious. I started Googling around about the fact that Jimmy Fallon is apparently partying very, very hard and has injured himself a lot. For which, if it were just your friend, let's just say it's not Jimmy Fallon, Tonight Show host, it was Jimmy, your buddy. If Jimmy, your buddy, was getting so wasted that he wound up injuring himself multiple times and had to go to the hospital multiple times, you would say that he's got a bit of a problem, that he's got to slow down, he's got to take care of stuff. That maybe Jimmy is an alcoholic. So that's all we know, and that's all that's being reported right now. These are playing by the rules. Jimmy Fallon drinks a lot. He is often cited and recorded on cell phones as being super wasted late into the evening. He has injured himself 3 times, and he has, on at least one of those injuries, where he shattered a bottle of Jägermeister and then cut himself on it, admitted that it was alcohol related. The other 2, we just got to assume are alcohol related. or we are assuming when we put it in an article like the New York Post did that he parties a lot and he has injured himself. The New York Post is making that assumption for you. And I feel that is very, 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 very unfair. Because the other element to this is something that might get reported eventually, but is not getting reported right now, which is on some of the more scurrilous gossip sheets, that Jimmy Fallon is going through some serious marriage problems. That he might be on the verge of a divorce. Okay, so big caveat emptor right here. I don't know shit. I don't know whether any of these things are correct, except for the fact that it's probably obvious since he talked about it personally on the Tonight Show that he has injured himself, and at least one of those were alcohol related. I don't know whether or not he's drinking too much. I don't know if he is actually having problems. All I know is that he has admitted at least one of them. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say that he is indeed going through major marriage problems. And indeed, he is drinking to cope with it. That's something that for whatever reason, the New York Post did not feel it was in their purview to report, even on a speculative basis, because it is being reported by other things, by other outlets. It just is, he's drinking like a madman, he's injured himself. So here's what I think's changed, and it's what I just mentioned. That there are so many more gossip columnists, there's so many more gossip websites. Twitter and Facebook are certainly things where somebody very close to a situation can tweet something or Facebook something or like somebody's tweet or Facebook post about something that might belay their true feelings. And we either make a decision as the media to report it or not report it. And I guess in this particular situation, although I'm sure he's a very private person and he doesn't want the fact that his, he's going through some shit with his wife right now. They got 2 very small kids. He doesn't want that out on the front page. I don't think in the best possible world that he would really, really want the fact that the current going rationalization is that he's just a fucking dead-end alcoholic who's physically destroying himself with his chemical addiction. Like, that's no way to live a life. You can't just have that out there. Jimmy Fallon is drinking so much because he's going through a divorce. Understandable. Or at least something where people can channel their empathy. Jimmy Fallon is a multi-million-dollar playboy who's getting wasted and doing a half-assed job at the Tonight Show. That is very negative. In whatever weird position we are, in terms of our journalism ethics at this very, very, very moment, we get very awkward things like this. That instead of the New York Post saying, hey, look at all these other websites that are reporting that dude's going through some marriage problems. It ain't us. It's them. At the absence of that, they just have this other narrative. And I guess you can say, well, we're asking people to read between the lines. And ultimately, and this is their out, the New York Post, the way that libel law works, it doesn't matter who reported it first. If you run it, then the burden is on you. You can get sued for it. So, I mean, I want to know what you guys think. What would you prefer? Would you prefer that your privacy be maintained even if it is at the cost of a false narrative circling about you? Or would you rather the ugly truth come out and you sacrifice privacy to have a fuller, more complete contextual picture about your life pressed out there? I mean, I guess part of it for people, for anybody listening, is that it's hard for us as private citizens to give much of a shit about, like, what our larger outward public reputation is. As a random person, I mean, I guess I have a little bit more of it because I'm talking here on the internet, and I'm, like, rabidly teasing a massive announcement at the end of this podcast, which has already disappointed pretty much everybody that I've told about it. Big cock tease. God, I'm terrible. It is hard to understand what your larger reputation is. It's hard to get what it means to sacrifice privacy for reputation. But I think that's where our society's headed. That's where people choose right now. They choose the fact that they would rather have less privacy and more context about their life. Because, that's what good people tend to do. Good people who live their lives well would rather have more context. Because more context is usually better if you're trying to live your life right. Now, if you're doing some real dirt, if you're fucking around, if you're doing shit that you yourself are ashamed of, then hell yeah, you want to keep that privacy. You want to make sure that context is the real C word to you. You do not want it out there. But as for Jimmy Fallon, I feel like eventually we're probably going to get there. If him and his wife do get divorced and marriage troubles indeed equals divorce, then everyone's going to say, shit, poor Jimmy. Motherfucker's really at a stressful situation. He's got a very demanding job, and now his marriage is falling apart. What a dude. I think you can understand if he's spiraling a little bit, and everybody will feel really bad for him. But in the meanwhile, I guess apparently he's just a dead-end shrug. Fun story, man. Very fun story. In my evolution as a podcaster, there were a few very obvious moments when I took a leap. I discovered something about my voice. I discovered something about what I did well. I discovered something that helped me walk down the line. Starting to do this podcast was one of them. Starting to do the Justin Robert Young podcast, where I wanted to dare myself to do a one mic show. Now, I had done one mic shows before, and one of them was another big step for me. And it was, and I'm reminded now because a listener to that podcast is right here in the chat room. Oddly enough, it was the Chris Angel Report podcast. And I'm sure it's still out there and people can go find it and taunt me endlessly. But when we started iTricks, Andrew and I, we had this idea that, and this is when like the phrase, I think these RSS feeds are going to be big. Like the idea of RSS feeds were something that we were very interested in. And podcasts were something that we very much believed in. But we thought that for Magic fans, what they wanted out of podcasts were very granular podcasts. So we made a bunch of them. We had the Magic Week in Review. That was like a big talk show, kind of. And that was your big, long-form conversational thing that we wound up turning into more of an interview show. At the time, we had the David Blaine, and I can't remember all the names. We had different names. It was like Penn and Teller Notes, Blaine Report, Copperfield News, and the Chris Angel Watch. Because those four at the time, and you could argue still, were the biggest names in Magic, and they're what people really wanted to pay attention to. Of those four, the only one that really got any traction was the Chris Angel Watch podcast. This is because Chris Angel then, and now I assume, has a very active fan base. They call themselves the Loyals. they are also, by and large, fairly young. He had well, not necessarily super young. I mean, I guess Chris Angel had many fans, at least in my experience, from like 8 to 16, and then like 16 to 35, barren, and then 35 to 65, we pick it right back up again for whatever reason. Very young, and then 35 to 65. That was kind of the demo that would email in to the show. But because there was a younger demographic, it was the first time that I wanted to do something a little bit more colorful, a little bit more ridiculous, a little bit more absurd. So I would, make noises and voices, and we'd have the same emailers over and over and over again. And it became a really fun time. And eventually I forget what the situation was. We became the official podcast of Chris Angel. I think he wound up putting us on his website for a little bit. But one of those emailers was, she is lovely metalhead here in the chat room right now. But she was lovely loyal metalhead as she emailed in. And it was the first time that I trusted myself to be silly. I trusted myself to be creative, and I trusted myself to go where the audience wanted to go. And this is before Night Attack. It's before BB Live Show. This is before anything that anybody who would know me through Diamond Club would know me for. And it really started with like entertaining a bunch of Chris Angel fans. So thank you very much for coming here in the chat room, lovely metalhead. It is great to see you again, and I hope that you continue watching all the stuff that I'm doing now. All right. Well, one real quick thing. We have the new Politics podcast out. Politics. You can download it on iTunes. You can find it on the RSS feed. Go to politics.com to get it. It is super fun. We got an awesome interview this week with Dave Leventhal. He has previously worked for the Dallas Morning News and Politico. He now works for the Center for Public Inquiry, and did a great article about Charles Koch and his donations to various schools across the country, and the issues that lay in with that. It's a great article. It's very, very well sourced. But here's my thing. So we're moving into the political season, and very rapidly, we're already losing our sanity. Like, it is already rabbit season, duck season in terms of a political conversation. And if you think it's bad now, it will only get worse. To quote Big Boy, from this point on, it only gets rougher. But as we still have one little thread of sanity, one little thread that says, hey, maybe we can actually have legitimate conversations with each other, with our friends and family. Maybe somebody can start a conversation, or not start a conversation, but mention in a conversation that they have a different political view from you, and you don't immediately cross them off their list and hope that they die in a fiery car accident 5 minutes after you've talked to them. While we still have that one little thread, let me ask you guys this. Can we agree to disagree? And I mean this, in this sense. How many times will it be news that somebody has a contrary political opinion to you? So let's look at this in the current political climate. And this isn't even just against parties. This is Bernie Sanders supporters to Hillary Clinton supporters. This is Ted Cruz supporters to Jeb Bush supporters. When I'm on Facebook, I see, oh God, I feel like so fucking old, by the way, that I had 2 segments today. 2 segments of, Facebook. God, I'm such a fucking hack. You see these linked, these viral articles that are like, that basically the real headline boils down to, Republican against abortion. Okay. Or like Hillary Clinton inconsistent. Okay. Like, and let's even take the inconsistency thing from Hillary off the table, because that's well known, but that's not political. Let's say, Hillary Clinton for this trade deal before she was against the trade deal. But let's just use that as an example. Like, we are in this weird position right now where just saying the same thing in different ways still gets headlines. Because here's my theory. At what point does defending your argument, at what point does your fascination with the people across the aisle's views become so intense that it becomes you building a cocoon around yourself and your understanding of the world? This is what happens when people live on Fox News or MSNBC. All you do is get affirmation after affirmation after affirmation that you are correct. But beyond, this isn't about blaming the gatekeepers. This is about our choice. Because on the web, we choose what to read. We choose what fills our brain. It's not a segment producer. It's not a reporter. It's not a writer. It's you. You decide. You are your own gatekeeper. And if all you do is read 19 articles about how Marco Rubio is against abortion, then it, to me, overskews what you are really going to focus on. It makes you deep dive into this one circle where you know that you don't agree with them, but you bathe in it. You wash in it. You're doing a big old hillbilly cannonball into the watering hole of hate. And whenever you do that, whenever you only focus on this one thing, and listen, there are one-issue voters for a reason. And if that's your point, then that's your point. And if you're just going to say, hey, look, this guy is against this one thing that I'm voting on. This person's against gun control. I can't fuck with him. This person is against abortion. I can't fuck with him. Then that's fine, right? I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to anybody who considers themselves to be a multi-issue voter, or someone that I would like to engage into a conversation on Facebook, because I just don't want everything to go back to the fact that we all understand what these people's positions are. They're not being obfuscated. They're not being hidden. They're out there. People say it over and over again. Nobody who is going to be elected to run for the Republican Party is ever going to be pro-choice. That's a fact. Like Agnes, Agatha, Jermaine, and Jack. To wit, anybody who is elected on the Democratic side is not going to be a steadfast stalwart for the Second Amendment. It just ain't gonna happen. So why do we focus on it? Why do we need the entirety of our political dialogue to be various translations of the exact same point? And is that not counterintuitive to the intellectual curiosity that we should be fostering in this, a free-flowing environment where we can pick and choose exactly what we want, where we're not programmed by gatekeepers? We have blown not only beyond the 4-channel prison, we have destroyed the multi-hundreds of channels cable dominance. Now we have millions. If I might borrow the phrase of the father of a failing political candidate, 1,000 points of light, wherein we can pick and choose to our heart's content. And yet, we just want to read the exact same headline, translated over and over and over again. Now, I'd be for it if they did that shit where you go and you translate it into Chinese, and then you translate that Chinese translation back into American, and you did it over and over and over again. And at the end, it just said like, Paul Ryan is making big cow abortion. That I would be very, very, very much in favor of. But until that happens, come on. Let's just try to have a little bit of a wider perspective.
Hope you're ready, girl. I wanna get nasty, but I'm ashy. Your natural juices lubricate me. Girl, I can't wait till you come over. Meet me in my bedroom, swinging on my sofa. Girl, I'll make your body feel good.
Let's go ahead and everybody right now give a big shout out to Turquoise Jeep. All the tracks from this episode have been brought to you by Existing Musical Beings. Their fantastic album. Let's go ahead and everybody hit up Turquoise Jeep on Twitter and just let them know that their jams are being smanged right here on the Justin Robert Young podcast, and everybody is jamming the fuck out to them. You can email this show at justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. We had a bunch of people do that. Let's go ahead and go to everybody who emailed. If you listen to this this episode at the very beginning, I played a musical remix of my story about when I left my car, my rental car, running on the streets of Portland while I was out doing my job with the co-owner of the company I work for, who, by the way, I got that song, and then I emailed it to him, the co-owner of my company, who was there with me while the story was happening. And if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, I got a rental car, I parked it on the streets of Portland. I then realized 2 hours later that I did not have the keys to the car in my pocket. I went back to the car, and I realized that the car was not only had the keys in it, but it was running and the doors were unlocked. So there was that. And the co-owner of the company just texts me back. It says, "You're weird." And I guess I am. But apparently I'm not alone in locking my keys in my car. Phil writes, "I can beat that. I recently left the keys in the car, the doors unlocked, and the engine on one day when we went to Disney for about 9 hours. When you wish upon a star." That is emasculating. There's no, Phil, you got to email me back. Do you have kids? Because if you have kids, it's got to be what? At least a year to rebuild that dad cred. And if you don't have kids with your friends, ball busting for a decade, right? It's almost worse if you're there with friends. If you're there with a loved one, there with family, in fact, family might be the worst. If you were there with your father or your mother and you are an adult and you drove and then you left your car like that, that invalidates the rest of your adulthood. You basically go back to the maturity of a 13-year-old in the eyes of your parents. That is directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Stephanie had another story. Stephanie writes, "Hi, JuRY. Just wanted to let you know that you are not alone in accidentally leaving your car running. My advisor in graduate school took a prestigious visiting speaker, a leader in the cancer research field, to dinner one night after a talk. He realized that they walked out of the restaurant and he didn't have his keys. As he approached his car, he realized his keys were in the car and the car was running. However, this wasn't keyless entry. This was a 1990 Subaru Outback, and therefore the doors had been manually locked. My boss, a young PhD researcher, and this prestigious cancer researcher were left standing in the parking lot looking at his running locked car in the cold of February in Rochester, New York. They ended up getting a ride from another professor to his house 30 minutes away to get his spare set, then back to the restaurant to unlock the car. I think the speaker's luggage was inside. So at least you didn't lock the car. With a prestigious scientist as your guest in a polar vortex weather, a.k.a. it could be worse. Stephanie, a.k.a. musical chemist, in the chat. And one of my CNY buddies. Whenever I post about Central New York stuff, I always see Stephanie tweet back. We got an email from Amos. Amos sent this audio email in. Let's go ahead and hear.
Hey, JuRY. My wife always gives me a bunch of shit about getting blazed in the bathtub. Is this justified?
Okay, so the question is it okay to get blazed in the bathtub? A lot of questions here, Amos, and I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of this is qualified on that. Number one, what kind of spread we looking at? Is this a one-bedroom apartment? Do you live in a house? Is the bathtub sufficiently far away from where your wife is? Number two, is there water in the bathtub? Because if you're like taking a bath, if you're a bath taker, and then you also like to kind of get high, I think I have a little bit more sympathy. If you're just smoking weed in an empty bathtub, you just seem like a deleted scene in a Fiona Apple video. Number three, are you trying to take measures to clear weed smoke out of your wife's life? Because if you are doing that, if you are showing effort, and yet for some reason you feel that the bathtub is an outpost for you to do this, then I'm okay with it. If the bathtub is like 15 feet in a one-bedroom apartment from where your wife's trying to sleep, and you're fucking putting up a goddamn smoke signal like you're trying to alert a rival Indian tribe to the oncoming white man, then you, sir, are an asshole. But I await your response. Meanwhile, Brock writes, "Sup, JuRY? Oh, this is about what I was asking the other episode about. What do I want to do with my life? A prescient topic, I might add." Brock writes, "Sup, JuRY? What do I want to do in my life is woodworking, blacksmithing, and leatherworking for the spiritual shop that my fiance and I are going to open, and having that shop connected to the sword fighting group that we help make so we can take part of our shop with to different Renaissance and medieval fairs." Dude, Brock. I mean, come on. Brock. I mean, you know this is my jam, right? No, I was in a Renaissance Recreation Society for a solid 4 years. You know, I traveled up and down the state of Florida, putting on leggings and learning myself some stage combat. I give you, Brock, a full and complete endorsement. Justin Young approved. Please keep that metal working and leather smithying going. Tess writes, anyway, I found myself in a weird position. Okay, so this is about, again, what do you want to do in your life? I found myself in a weird position wherein I'm almost done with my graduate degree and have several people pushing me to start a PhD. And at this point, everyone's asking, well, what are you going to do when you graduate? I've been surrounded by people in my program who either just graduated with their bachelor's or have been professionals for a while. Sometimes I feel completely inadequate with my speech about, I want to go into nonprofit or other agency administration with a mental health focus, just due to my background, despite, I suppose, my skill set that I'm building or whatever. I have to stop and explain how macro social work works to other social works, or that administration doesn't just mean an office manager or a layperson, that I'm not going to give up on things randomly to people who know me like 22-year-old Tess. I think it's mostly really hard to separate your past self from your future self, and that impacts how one starts to plan the future. People need to understand that plans change, and it's okay, or they may not. If they're constantly fluctuating without any achievements whatsoever, that's another story. But flexibility in plans is part of life, and 5 years is a long time. Keep that email in your head. I then go on to Warcow, who, by the way, for whatever reason, this podcast is just garnered the most amazing people that have written in. And none, I think, have poured their heart out in more explicit detail than Warcow And I know because I've got to edit his emails down to something that would not be audiobook length if I were to read all of them unedited. So he wrote a million different things. Or he, of course, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman, always a diamond workout. So I'm just going to read his description of this show. Because he very much, we had this episode where I tried to make an awkward transition from a story about working as a reporter on 9/11 to iPhone 6 Plus reviews, or 6S Plus reviews. And it was really awkward and it was really terrible. And you can listen to it in the episode called Oh Geez. But he wrote about what he liked about the episode. I truly feel that the most recent episode was one of the best you've done. It was a brilliant representation of the JuRY show as a whole. I've mentioned to you before how the JuRY show has something special because you have the ability to tackle serious topics and give them the needed gravitas. Tackle extremely silly topics with the levity necessary and then get down to a very personal tone at the same time. This is the only show I know where you can talk about buying a prostitute, relationship advice, hobos looking like wizards, suicide, female masturbation, depression, 9/11, and dildo ass training, and it all feels like something that belongs in the same show. Most of the times your episodes have a fairly serious or completely horseshit tone, and as such, it is usually fairly easy for you to transition between topics within a single episode. This most recent one, which is not the most recent one, but, was a rare combination episode, which makes it harder, but it was one of the most enjoyable times I think I have ever had listening to this show. I happened to be listening to it while doing inventory at work, and it caused me to have several recounts because I was enjoying it so much. Workow, thank you so much. It means a lot. Of course, if you would like to email into this show, you can go ahead and do that at justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. You can follow me on all the different social media platforms. Justin R. Young. You can, of course, go join the conversation at diamondclub.reddit.com. I'm not editing the show. That was a false pop. That was... Let's get down to business, folks. Here we go. Oh, all right. Here, where's the... All right, here we go. Open up a Guinness. Where to start? Okay, so let's start here. Understand that if you like this show, if you like anything that I've done, that I've always done it where it can fit. And I don't mean that in the sense that I don't care about it, as I care very, very deeply about it. It's that I don't... the money's never been there, and the whenever I've had time to try to work on stuff, I've just tried to give it my all, and I've tried to make up for the fact that I can't prepare and I can't work on the show the way that I want to with enthusiasm. And what I've tried to do is work my entire internet career in making the effort count for more, and making the improv count for more, and making the making the moment mean something, because I can't give the 6-7 moments before to make it better, because I have a job, and I've got to keep going, and that's only gotten more important as I've had, I'm married, and it's been something that has kind of weighed on me for a while, because you guys deserve more, because the JuRY show deserves more, and Night Attack deserves more, and FSL deserves more, and the morning stream deserves more. I deserve to be on the show. The Daily Tech News Show deserves more. So it kind of came to a point where I just had to reprioritize. And I talked to the Go Game, and I told him I'm quitting. And so my last day is November 30th, and you guys are going to get more. Everyone's going to get more. Everything is going to change after this. This is the biggest decision I've ever made in my life. This is me. I made a joke when we started BB Live Show that I had broken up with my girlfriend at the time so I could marry the internet. This is me saying that I have faith in you, and I hope that you guys have faith in me, because I really, really, really believe that what we can do together is nothing short of magical. I think that we can make awesome stuff, and we can really, really, really have a good time, and we can do Twitch now, and we can do. I can prep for this fucking show. I can write bits for Night Attack again. I can not move around every fucking week on Daily Tech News Show. I can actually put time and effort into FSL, and that, my friends, is only what we can do based on what we have already set up. That's what I've done with fucking two hands tied behind my back. Here's what I want to hear from you. JustinRobertYoung@gmail.com. What do you want me to do? What do you want from me? If I told you that I was announcing a new project right now, if I told you that, what would make you the happiest? What would be the best thing you could possibly have? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the dawning of a brave fucking new world. And at the end of it, we're all going to look back at this one episode of the Justin Robert Young podcast, and we're going to say, this is where it began. Or I'm going to have to go get another job because this failed. Yeah. Or Ashley's just going to pay the rent. But most likely, we are going to be at an amazing point in time, because you, viewer, and you, listener, and you, Diamond Club viewer, if you find yourself drinking so much because your marriage is falling apart, if you find yourself penning a 40,000 word Reddit post about how Jar Jar Binks is actually the head of the Sith, if you find yourself with your keys locked in your car while it is running and you have to make an hour-long round trip in Rochester, New York to get your keys back, then folks, remember that this is the Justin Robert Young that just quit his job so we can make this motherfucking podcast better, telling you that patreon.com/JuRY is a very serious place in which you should consider giving money. And also that I am Justin Robert Young, and you, dear listener and viewer, are encouraged to please don't die.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Also, subscribe to the YouTube.